Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This time we're gonna talk about keyboard modifications. You can see in the camera in the video, there's a lot of tools on the table right now. So don't worry, we're gonna go through step by step from the easiest one to the most difficult step of the modifications. You can pick and choose definitely. So in front of us, there will be a keyboard. Like this is just a sample keyboard for me to test the sound of the switches, different switches. Don't worry about it. It's not functional, not yet used. It can be used, but it's not used. And then several tools around. Okay, so the easiest modifications in the keyboard, if let's say you bought a keyboard something like this one. This is usually a basic gaming keyboard, wired one, yeah, cheapest one, open style like this. And the easiest thing that you can do is basically change the keycap. So I've changed the keycaps from almost black, I think all black when I bought it. Now I combine it with some white accents or even red or whatever you want to. Anyway, that's the easiest modifications on the keyboard. So to do that, a simple change of the keycap. So basically changing the keycap is the easiest modification that you can do, right? So to change the keycap, you need a keycap puller. So usually when you bought a keycaps, you provided something like this in a plastic bag, whatever. There's two things that you probably interested is. This one is the keycap pullers. I'll talk about the other one. So usually like this plastic one usually provided, and with the two prongs like this. This is a simple keycap pullers. Slide in your fingers and then just put it there, something like this, and then pull it out. Okay, so basically that's how you pull the keycaps properly. Okay, this one is very cheap, quite useful, and usually provided free from the keyboard that you purchase. These days, most modifiable keyboards or gaming keyboards provide this tool. The next level will be a better tool. That these tools are usually scratching the side of the switch because you slide in, scratching the sides. Better tools will be something like this. This is also provided when you bought a keyboard, a bit more expensive keyboard, I guess, modifiable keyboard. Usually they provide these two function tools. This one is a keycap puller, the other one is a switch puller. We'll talk about that later on. Switch keycap pullers usually have two kind of what do you call it, wire like this. The idea is really to slide it side of the switch to the bottom of the keycaps and then pull it. Several things happens with these tools. First of all, it will still scratch the side, but it will be under the keycaps like this, and it will pull upward with a more balanced forces. With this kind of things, it's only grabbing the side of the keycaps like this and then pull it. Sometimes once after many use, it comes kind of like degrading, or yeah, it can loosen and then you will not be able to pull perfectly or even damage the switch. With this one or this one, yeah, it's much better option. This one is provided also when you bought a keycaps from Akko. Akko is a brand, very nice. So it's basically it's tools that quite handy when you do open the keycaps in for a lot of keycaps in the keyboard. Okay, so that is the keycap puller, right? And this other type of keycap, I bought this one in the market. This one is a similar keycap pullers with Akko. This one you get it from buying a keycaps. This one you just bought it. If you don't buy a Akko, then you don't get this one. This one you can buy from the store, something similar. There's many type of keycap puller. This one is metal, all metal. Yeah, So you can that is the simplest modification on the keyboard. Change the keycap. Yeah, you can do something like this. This one has white and red, for example. This one has black, red, and yellow, whatever. And then this one has honey milk kind of keycaps. What else? This one is Blackpink theme keycaps. Or you can do a lot of so this one is a Gundam style keycaps. So it has an artisan keycap here. What else? Like this, black with cherry. And this is cherry profile keycap. Let me show you. Gold bar keycaps. This is a fancy one. Well, it's not very useful, but it looks shiny. Gold bar keycaps and many more. Anyway, so you can change keycaps to your liking. You can buy keycaps in the market. By the way, there are different keycaps profile. Profiles means the height, usually the form, the shape of the keycaps has a different profile. Something like higher on top and lower in the center and higher again on the bottom. And there's a thinner height or lower height like cherry profile. It's very convenient to type. And XA profile or SA profile or XDA profile has a higher height. So it's look classic. For example, this one is XDA profiles. It's look classic style from switches. While let's say which one? This Gundam style, the one that I just showed you. Sorry, it's getting loose. This Gundam style keycap is a cherry profile, so it's much lower height keycap profile. So I'm gonna talk about keycaps profile later on. Okay. But that's the easiest modification that you can do. The next level will be the switches. Okay. Once you change, usually keycap is for cosmetic, okay, and the comfort of the typing. But if you want to go further on keyboard modification, is changing the sound profile of the keyboard, because basically the recent hobby of the keyboard talk about the sound profile. So if you can see, this one is the clicky switch. It's very noisy. The gaming keyboard back then comes only with this clicky switch, okay, and it's very noisy, and sometimes it's very annoying. So when you go to keyboard modification, the first thing or the next level modification that you want to do, basically changing the sound profile. How do you change it? Basically from changing from the clicky switches or this tactile switches. It's not as clicky as that, but it still have some tactile, into a linear switch where it doesn't sound much. Yeah, so it's basically very smooth, no bumps or not tactile feedback, but it's very smooth with a different strength. There's some stronger spring that kind of giving you higher pressure on pushing it, or lower pressure for faster gaming, whatever. So basically that is the effect of the changing the switch. So different switch has different result. So basically, let's say which one. This one is, you can see, you can hear. This one is a clicky switch, a green switch. This one is a linear switch. This one is loop linear switch. This one is it's a linear switch and loop, so pingy. This one is loop. Here, this one, so You just hear the green clicky one here. This one mostly linear. You can see here. You can hear it, sorry. So you can see different pitch, different frequency, different sound profile when I click that and when I type that from different linear switch. So just this is the board to sample the sound of the switch, so I can get a feel what kind of sound coming out from the switch. So the next level will be changing the switch. So to do that, basically once you, let's say you open the keycaps, you need to pull out the switch. So you need a switch puller. The switch puller are usually like something like this. The cheapest one that provided by the manufacturer is something like this. In the plastic, you see in plastic bag, you can find the similar tools here. This one is just to grab the switch from the top and the bottom part of the switch, something like this. Let me show you. Yeah, and pinch and then pull. So this is, you can use this to pull one or two switch, but this one is less ergonomics. It's very hard to use, and yeah, it's a crap basically. Now the next level will be this one. Remember, this is a two type of tools in one piece of tools. The one is keycap puller, yeah, the OK design. This one is the switch puller. Okay, so similar functions. You can actually pull the switch like this. So you put in the upper and lower tab of the switch and pull. Okay, it's look easy. Oh, sorry, let me complete this one first. This one is another type of tools. It's from ACO, a simple plate design. Similar way, you pinch in the upper and lower tab of the switch and then pull. Okay, a much more useful one is this one. This one is from plate, a similar looks, but this one is a plate. This one is a plate, but rounded plate, so it's kind of bent, so it's kind of profile to give a much more strength to the tools. The other things from this tools is basically it's covered with some rubbery things, so it's nice to touch rather than the metal, very sharp. And sometimes you can your hand will be having sore effect after pulling 100 switches. This one is much comfortable, similar effect, upper and lower tap and then pull. The other one that you probably found is this one. This one is also a switch puller, but this one has more wider tab just to prevent too much strength pushing the tab. So with these tools, if you push too hard, it sometimes broke the tab in the switch, right? So you don't want to do that with these tools. This one has more delicate pull and much more strength and stable way of pulling the switch. Okay, but yeah, it's not, because it's smaller tools compared to this one, it's not as comfortable to be used. But in certain situations, you want stability and you don't want to damage the switch, expensive switch especially, you can use this one. So it's quite useful. The other one is like something like this. It's very fancy stuff. You put it here and then you pull down and then you kind of pull, something like this. However, this tool has not been very easy to use. You have to use two hands instead of one. This one I rarely use, despite of looks very cool, very sturdy and very stable, but I rarely use this one. I mostly use this one to pull out the switch, or even this one is enough. Okay, so that is the switch puller. once you open the switch, you probably need some container like this or something like this, a jar, a plastic jar, whatever, so to collect your pull out switch, okay, in one place, so it doesn't go everywhere in your desk. Okay, so what did you do when you are pull out the switch like this? This is a mechanical switch, linear, tactile, and also clicky. What did you do with the switch? So what you do with the switch, basically this is, for example, this is linear red switch, very common one. Actually it's very good because the pin of the switch is very thick. What did you do? Okay, what you do is basically you want to lubricate the switch. So switch, common switch like this, sometimes the cheaper one is not lubricated, so it's dry. When it's dry, the plastic movable part here will scratch or having a friction with the top cover, the bottom cover, whatever. So it's create a noise where, you know, it's plasticky, scratchy sound that's probably not pleasant to hear. And sometimes, yeah, it's not creamy. They call it creamy, talky, clacky, whatever, because of the switch mechanisms are not so good. Now, there are several different switches. We have to have a separate discussion for that. Anyway, what you're gonna do with the switch is you're gonna lube the inside of the switch. To do the lubing, you need to open the switch. Yeah, I mean it. So you have 110 switches. You have to lube it one by one yourself if you want to DIY. Or, as I mentioned, changing the keycap is easy. You can pick and choose. Changing the switch is also easier. You just need to pull out the switch and replace with the new switch that is already pre-lubed from the factory. So this day, the better switches or the more expensive switches has been pre-lubed from the factory. So you can just swap in the switches back into the socket. Okay. Oh, I forgot. So remember when I pull this switch out, it seems to be easy because it has a 5-pin universal socket down in the PCB over there, 5 holes at least. Yeah, that is the better socket that provided from the keyboard manufacturer, because you can hot swap the switch much more easier with this kind of socket. Okay, the other socket usually is only 3-pin. So basically there's only like this one is 3-pin, 2 metal pins and 1 single plastic big round pin in the middle to stabilize the switch. That is a 3-pin switch. Which one is this one? Oh, this one is 3-pin also. On this one, let me pull out this one. So this one is ACO tactile switch. It has 5-pin, 3 plastic pin, and 2 metal pin. Okay, so this is a 5-pin switch or a PCB mount switch, and the 3-pin is actually plate mount switch. Okay, it's actually clipped into the plate. This one is have a triple plastic pin to stabilize in the PCB, so it's called PCB mount. Anyway, the 5 universal hot swap socket is much better options. If you bought a middle price keyboard, usually using a 5-pin universal hot swappable socket, yeah, but the cheaper keyboard usually use a 3-pin Otemu style hot swap socket, so it's much more difficult to pull out the switch and to push the switch in. Just be careful with the 3-pin because you can bend the metal pin, and once you push it wrong, it will bend the pin, and then the switch will not work because it's not connected to the PCB. The 5-pin universal socket usually much more stable, much better to use, and the 5-pin socket usually provide much more stability compared to the 3-pin. Anyway, so that is just a different socket that I forgot to mention. The other, so let's continue with the switch. So once you pull out the switch out from the keyboard, what do? You want to open the switch. You want to lubricate the inside of the switch. As I said, you can buy the lubricated switch, but more cost or more expensive than you do it yourself. Definitely, because it's still a cost putting a lubricant inside the switch. So if you want to do it yourself for 100 switches or 50 switches or 60 switches at least, then you need a switch opener. So there are several switch opener. This one is a 3D printed one that can be used sometimes, but it's very difficult because it's not so sharp in the edges of the. So the switch has two tabs on each, one tab on each side that needs to be pried open for the top cover to make it loose the top cover. But this 3D printed sometimes doesn't work because it's not so sharp. This one is only biting one side, you see, but the other side won't bite because it's not so sharp. This 3D printed usually useless. The other one is metal one, but this one has a very specific models. You cannot even fit in the switch or the Ultimo style in here because I think it's a cherry profile. The one is much more useful is something like this. Okay, there's two type of this. This one is also okay, but it's a smaller one. This can open 3 type of switch. This Ultimo one, this one is a cherry type switches opener with 4 tab, and another one for a small different type of switches. This one is usually Ultimo or this cherry profile that's commonly found in the market. So it's magnetized. You can store it by and then put probably some wire or whatever. This one is I like the most. It's a bigger one, much more sturdiest. This one is aluminum CNC switch opener. This one has 2 type opener, Ultimo style, 3-pin style on the PCB mount or cherry profile style. This one has a sharper edges on this wide Ultimo tab remove opener. So you put this Ultimo style switches here, because it's sharp, it will push on each side of the tab of the switch and pry it open like this. Okay, so that's how you open the switch. Similar with this. This one has a cherry profile, 4 tab, 2 smaller tab on each side. You have to go with this 4-leg switch opener and put the tab on the switch on the side into the side of the here, and then push it. Okay, it will pry open the switch immediately and smoothly. Okay, so this is how you open the cherry profile switches. Okay, with 4 tab. That's how you open the switch. Once you open the switch, usually you put the top cover, the stem in a different bucket. Let's say you have a bucket, you have several buckets just to put the stem, the spring, and the lower part on the other bucket. Okay, and then you have to the next level after you pry open the switch, so let me remove, is to lubricate. So what you can do is lubricate one by one by using this lubricant, famous one, GPL or Krytox 205G0. This is a commonly used lubricant. There are several other ones, but this one is much more common. And usually you need a brush to do this. You just pick a painter brush. I think it's a silicone based brush, hair brush, or the paint brush. you just pick some small dab of lubricant and then put it in the top cover and then smear it through. So you just have some small amount of lubricant in the brush, and then you lubricate from the bottom part first, usually here, the inside of the rail and the center area, and then the next one usually you can do a top cover on its side like this on the inside part that touch the stem. And the last one actually, or not the last one actually, the third one is the stem. To do lubricate the stem, you usually have the stem pan like this or holder. You grab with the like this. There are metal pincher inside. Put it inside the top of the stem and then put it like this, and then you can lubricate the pins, the sharp, the surrounding area of the stem. Yeah. Then once you did it, you can put it back. Now before that, there's another things that you can lubricate is the spring. So to lubricate the spring, you put it inside the jar. Okay, and usually you give them several drops of liquid lubricants. Yeah, 105 Krytox 105 or something. I'm using a different liquid lubricants for the spring, and then you cover it and then you shake it, and after sometimes all the spring are lubricated by the liquid lubricants. And then once you done that, you can you can use some tweezers to pick it up like this and put it back in the lower half of the switch, something like this, and you put back the stem. Usually the stem has the pin, small pin area, and the flat one. The pin one will face the metal part of the lower component of the switch. The flat one usually on the opposite side. So don't forget that. Remember the orientation of the stem, and usually it's like this. Yeah. So you release it. Just ensure it's stable. And then you put back the top cover. The top cover has once with the hump like this, with the hump, and the other one has recess actually, so kind of opening. So the hump will go on top of the metal parts, and you slide like this on top of from the stem area slowly, and then clip it back onto the lower part of the switch. That's it. So this one is a fully lubricated switch. That's just for one switch. So you have to go that through all the 100 switches, or at least 60 switches, or 75 switches, or 81 switches, whatever your keyboard number of switches. Yeah, if you want to do it yourself. So it's a very laborious work, but yeah, it can take an hour at least into 2 hours for the whole switches, depending on the size of the keyboard, the number of switches. Once you did it, you can just put it on the lubricated container. So containers, you have to have several containers. So that is lubricating the switch. Okay, so if you want to do lubricating the switch in one go with a lot of switches, I suggest you put this one as lubricating stations. This one I printed myself using 3D printers. I own 3D printers, so you can just download from Thingiverse, and then you can print yourself the stations, or you can buy it in the market using acrylics usually, or metal, whatever. This station is useful to put the lower part of the switches here. Okay, so you put the lower part here, all of the switches lower part here, and then you try to lubricate one by one. Yeah, all the 10 usually I go 10 switches in a go, then go downward. Once you lubricate the lower part, and then you lubricate the spring in this container, 10 of them in a go, and then you lubricate the top part of it, the stem first. Once you've done the bottom part, let's say you kind of do the stem, and then you pick with your tweezers the spring, and then you put it here, and then you put the stem back into the lower part, something like this, in here. Yeah. Once you do that, sorry, I lost my spring. So let's say it's here, and then you pick the top part, and then you lubricate the top part by hands, something like this. Once you're done, and then you clip it back into the lower part here in the station. So clip that, and then you go each of them step by step. So it's much more systematic, and it's much easier not to hold by hand everything. This one has a lower part in this area. Even the stem can be put upside down here also in this smaller hole upside down, and then you can lubricate from here rather than using this stem holder. You can put it all the stem here upside down. But sometimes the boxy type, this type of things cannot be put here. Okay, this is for the smaller stem, yeah, that can fit in. These stations are useful for me, at least, if you want to do many switches lubrication process. Okay, now that is up until the switch. Once you lubricate, I think you can have a different sound profile already from the keycap and the switch combinations. The next level modification that before we go into opening the keyboard is usually stabilizers. This modifier key, like the control, the shift, the alternate, the space bar especially, or the caps lock, usually has stabilizers. So if you look in here, if you pry open, there's a two side of dummy kind of look like a switch, but it's actually there's a metal rod behind it to stabilize the up and down of the movement. So the keycap, this is because it's wide size, it can't be tilted if only sitting on the center of the switch, right? So the stabilizers ensures that the keycap is moving linear vertically. Okay, so that is the function. This is a longer rod bar behind this plate that stabilizes the space bar, so it's not tilted to one side, because the switch is only the space bar keycap is only sitting in the center, right? So it needs to be stabilized so it's not tilted left and right. So that is the function of stabilizer. The problem with stabilizer is it creates a very noisy effect if it's not properly looped or properly tuned, we call it. So what happens with the stabilizers, this is one example of stabilizers. The plastic part is scratching each other, the stem and the holders, and also the bar, the metal bar here, see the metal bar here is not straight. Sometimes it's kind of like not balanced. So that's another effect of non-untuned stabilizers. Also the mechanics of the stabilizer also quite loose, and it's kind of like wobbly a lot. So the much better stabilizer have more precise mechanics, and also a very straight this wire or the metal rod is very straight. That is a much more expensive stabilizers meant for you. So the next level is either change these stabilizers buy another one with a very good quality or better quality, and then replace it. Yeah. So this one is a plate mount stabilizers, meaning it sit on top of the plate and clip using a clip mechanics. The other type, let me I think this one is a PCB mount stabilizer. This one is provided from Monsgeek. Is keyboard. So you have to screw this you have to screw this part into the PCB, and then there's a stem inside actually. Yeah, something like this. That's connected by the rod. Okay, so the difference with the PCB mount stabilizers, which one? This one is actually, this one is screwed PCB mount, and this one is plate mount. It's clipped into the plate, so you basically just put into the plate and clip it. Okay, this one is a clip one, for example. You see there's a clip one, so you can open it by using a tweezer or something sharp or a screwdriver, something like this. You push the clip and then you can pull it out. Basically you have to open the switch first. Okay, once you open the switch, let me show you. Okay, once you open the switch, you can slide out this stabilizer out. This is plate mount stabilizer. So this one is the provided one, but it's quite good. So what you need to do is dismantle this, put some heavier, thicker lubricant in between the mechanics. Sometimes they are called what do you call it, band aid modification. So basically you put a band aid and then trying to put some band aid where the metal rod or the metal wire touch the plastic inside. You put a band aid in the stem of this stabilizer. So basically, yeah, so basically inside here you put a band aid. This is where the metal rod touches this stem, so to reduce rattle. But I don't like it. It's kind of becoming mushy, muted sound. It's not so good. I like the clean one, but it only be better sounded stabilizer if you purchase a more precise one. So this one is a basic one, very cheap, I think, provided by the keyboard. This one also, but usually it's very loose. Yeah, this one I think already you see there's a black tape inside. That's already band aid using a Poron tape. So this one is plate mount, slide it in something like this, and then push downward and clip into the plate. That's it. Then you can put the switch back, and you put the space bar on top of that. Okay, so once you stabilize or tune the stabilizers, it will sound firm, not rattling sounds. I haven't got a sample of rattling sound, but it's very bad. So it's rattly sounds, very noisy. So meaning it's not this one is not balanced yet. You see, different here sound, different sound. This one is stable, this one is not. So that's the effect of the unstable metal rod. I have to check again. This one is okay. Yeah, so that's is the modification of the stabilizers. The next level after the switch is stabilizers for the modifier. So spacebar, shift, caps lock, enter, or even backspace, use a stabilizer mostly in a better keyboard. Okay, so that is the next level of the third level actually of modifying the keyboard. So first one, let me recap. The keycap, you need keycap puller, something like this, yeah, or provided one from the keyboard. So this one is for pulling out the keycaps. The second tools area will be the switch puller, something like this. Don't use this one provided, it's gonna hurt your hands. Use this one, yeah, to pull out the switch out of the PCB or the keyboard, yeah. And the next level will be after that, after you pull out the switch, you need lubrication of the switch tools by using this brush, some stem holder usually, and of course the lubricant itself. There's a liquid one for the spring usually, and then the Krytox solid one for the switch cover or the structures, and some tweezers probably required, and some containers, and also lubrication stations as I mentioned, just to put and then some jar for spring. Also remember switch opener, I forgot to mention, to pry open your switch and put the components to be lubricated container. The third level, without opening the keyboard, basically you can change the stabilizers by a lubricated one or a tuned one already by somebody else, and then you can just replace and drop in the step mount stabilizer only. Okay, step mount stabilizer do not require any opening of the keyboard. The PCB mount stabilizer though, you need to open the keyboard basically. Yeah, this one is much more advanced, much more stable, but it requires some more step. Okay, so the plate mount stabilizer, you don't need it. You just slide in the new one after you open the switches. Of course, you slide in the space bar, the long one, the smaller one, or 2U for the 2-unit size for the caps lock, shift, and everything. So usually need at least one stabilizer for space bar, and 1, 2, 3 at least, or more, or 5 even for caps lock, 2 shift, enter, backspace, and some others. Okay, in a much more expensive keyboard have more stabilizers. So that is the modification of the keyboard before you open the keyboard. Okay, the next level of modification usually require you to open the keyboard. So to open the keyboard, there are several ways. This one has a top mount screw. It's a plate, a stiffer plate using a steel plate. So you have to open using a Phillips screw from the screw on top. There's probably 5 or 6 screw on top, and then once you open, you can pull it out, and then you can see the bottom area of the keyboard. You need a Phillips screw, a manual one or motorized one. I usually use this one for a quicker work, but yeah, manual one, you need a screwdriver to do that. Either some keyboard has a hex screw, so you need a hex screwdriver like this, or L driver, usually provided by the keyboard, or you have your own to do opening of the keyboards. Let me find. Yeah, so basically usually you need this one, yeah, to open up the keyboard. Some keyboard, let me find. This keyboard, remember the Gundam one, has no screw. Okay, this keyboard has no screw because it's clipped. Yeah, to open the clip keyboard, you need a prying tool like this. Yeah, and then you pry open the top cover and bottom cover. After you open the switch, of course, key cabinet switch, you then pry open this from this edges, and then you pry open. So I don't like this kind of keyboard that using a clip. It's very difficult to open, and also can damage the cover itself if you using let's say you're using a sharp object like Phillips screw, or a flat head screwdriver to open. You will damage the cover. Use a plastic one or silicone or whatever, yeah, to open it. Okay, so there are several type of it. The other one usually like this is this one is a Monsgeek one, so it has L screw 8 of them or 10 of them from below. So you use that hex drive to open the hex screwdriver to open that type of keyboard. So different way of opening the keyboard. But why you need to open the keyboard? So once you open the keyboard has several dampening materials inside the keyboard. So the first one is basically between the top plate and the PCB. There we call it plate foam. Either use Paran, or Paran is one of the type of the foam. Also EVA foam are used in between the plate and the PCB. And also there's a PE sheet, usually a PE sheet something like this. The PE sheet usually provided when you buy the keyboard, like it's a keyboard cover. That is a PE. It's very thin, white. Usually white is like this, semi-transparent. So this is usually called PE sheet. That can be used as a dampener between your switch and the PCB. So the switch basically sit on top the PE sheet in between your switch and PCB. Right, that is the dampener from using PE sheet. The other between the plate and the PCB, or it's usually EVA foam. EVA foam is what do you call it? A denser material. So it's much more thicker and not open cell. So it's much more closed cell. So this is PE. So this is the thinner one. It's 3 millimeters. Usually use a 5 millimeters plate foam. The open cell foam usually are sitting behind the PCB, between your PCB and the lower cover. So cell foam is something like this. Mic cover is an open cell, so it's more porous looks. So that is cell foam that can be used to dampening the sound or the reflection or the echo in the bottom part of the keyboard. So between the PCB and the lower cover of between this cover and the PCB. So this is cell foam. So another dampening which sit or stick into the back plate of the keyboard, usually either silicone, or I use bitumen also, hard asphalt materials that is attached using a sticky materials or stickers into the back plate to stiffen the back plate. Usually the plastic keyboard has what do you call it, a very noisy back cover, very thin, and then that's why it's being dampened by the bitumen or silicone or whatever, to ensure the cover here do not make noise. Okay, so it has less noise, so it's more solid. So that's the first area, the last area on the dampening. Okay, now that is the purpose of opening the keyboard, and also to install this PCB mount stabilizer usually. So the main function is to really change the sound profile by adding a dampening material inside the keyboard. So you can play around. There's another dampening between the PCB and the cell foam. In the bottom part of the PCB is using the tape mod, they call it. The tape mod is attaching this tape, painter's tape. Basically, I'm using 3M fire resistant tape mod, paper tape. So it's much more fire resistant or heat resistant, not fire, into the bottom of the PCB. So I just tape the whole PCB, 2 layer of tape mod, this painter's tape. You can use the basic painter's tape if you want to, in the bottom part of the PCB. So it creates some, what do you call it, different sound profile. It's much more crisp sound, reflecting from the switch interacting your PCB and then bounce back into the but it's nicer rather than muted, very dull. It's much adding a bit of sound profile using a tape mod. So again, to recap, going inside the keyboard is to open the keyboard and dismantle the keyboard and adding some dampening material. If some cheaper keyboard don't have a plate mount, usually you create your own plate mount by cutting out holes from the EFA foam, and then you put between the plate and the PCB. I mentioned also using the PE sheet on top of your switch or Parent sheet, whatever. Some you can buy pre-made Parent foam to be put. This has a sticker just to put on top of the PCB in between your switch and the PCB. You can buy this one, and then it adding some different sound profile. So basically reducing the rattling, the sharp contact of your switch into the PCB. So that is the effect of dampening. And then below the PCB you can add the tab mod as I mentioned, and the cell foam and the silicone base or bitumen base to stiffen the cover, especially on the plastic keyboard. You don't necessarily need it in the aluminum cover because it's already stiff and solid, but in plastic keyboard you probably need some heavier stuff attached to your back cover. That will further give a different sound profile onto your noisy keyboard. Okay, so it's much more firm, less reflective, much crisp sound out of the reflections, and less contact or rattling or whatever bad sound from your switch with the PCB and the plate. So that is the further down modifications on top of the keycaps, the switches, the stabilizers, and then you go further into dampening the materials, dampening the sound profile from your keyboard. Okay, there are several others, like for aluminum case usually you have to have a force break mod, meaning that you put a smaller like Tamiya tape or whatever thicker material in between your top and bottom cover of the aluminum, because if you don't do that, sometimes the top cover and lower cover introduce some noises, also some sounds, that unwanted sound. So you put the isolations in between. You can see other video that I've created for that kind of things. Okay, so I think I stop here because there's furthermore knowledge you require to do the mod, but at least you know the tools that I've used. Well, you can scissors usually needed, art cutting tools you needed sometimes to cut some foam. What else? You probably need something like this, a silicone mat, just to lubricate the switch so you don't mess with your this one is a table mat. It's not so expensive, but the black one I like it. It's because it's clean, but you don't want to put some lubricant in the mat. You probably need some cutting mat just to cut some foam or tape, whatever. Yeah, so that usually need the tools or what. So metal rulers just to cut, tweezers, you can have several tweezers. What else? Yeah, cutters, just normal cutters. Or you need some magnetized screw pens. You can put some screw over here without losing it. So some screw and you need a lot of this because you need to store a lot of unused switches, keycaps, whatever in your drawer or something. Yeah, other tools are required as needed. Some pliers, usually I have laying around some pliers if you want to straighten the pins, a bend pin of the switches. You probably need some flat pliers. Yeah, so there are actually a lot of tools being used, but I started from the most common one being required to do the keycaps modifications, and then switch puller as the second one. The switch lubricating tools, also including for the stabilizer lubricating, and screwdriver or L driver or hex driver to open up the keyboard, and then foam cutting tools, whatever, to change and put some modification, a dampener, sound modification inside your keyboard. Okay, so that's it. It's quite a long video. Hopefully you get some idea what you need and what you don't need. You can start from the minimums and then start your tools required to do modifications of the keyboard. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me using the messaging and some comments, whatever. So hopefully there's some giving you some insight of what I did in the keyboard hobby. Anyway, see you in another video.